The recycled air of Thomas Reeves' cargo ship tasted like metal and old coffee as he made his final inspection round before docking at Helios Station. His boots echoed on the metal grating of the corridor as he moved through the dimly lit cargo. Hold, checking manifests against inventory one last time. System check complete. All systems nominal, announced the ship's AI in its flat, emotionless voice. Thanks, Dora, Tomas replied, running a hand through his disheveled brown hair. At 42, he'd spent more than half his life hauling supplies between Earth colonies and outposts. The job wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills and kept him. Among the stars where he belonged, soft thud from the rear storage compartment stopped him mid-stride. Dora, was that on the manifest? He asked, hand moving instinctively to the small stunner at his belt. Negative. No scheduled maintenance or cargo shifting anticipated. Tomas approached the storage unit cautiously. Stowaways weren't uncommon. On longer routes, usually desperate people looking for passage to a better life. But this run had been direct from Europa to Helios. No stops where someone could have snuck aboard. He punched in the access code, and the door slid open with a hydraulic hiss. At first glance, the compartment appeared empty, just stacked supply crates and equipment. Then he heard it. A soft, rhythmic sound like suppressed sobbing. I know. You're in here, he called, moving deeper into the storage unit. I'm not going to hurt you, but you need to come out. The sobbing stopped abruptly. After a tense moment of silence, a slender figure emerged from behind a stack of crates. Tomas felt his breath catch in his throat. At least he assumed. It was female, stood about 5 feet tall, with luminescent purple skin that seemed to shimmer in the dim light. Her eyes were large, completely black except for pinpoints of starlight that served as pupils. Silver markings traced elegant patterns across her forehead and cheeks, and her hair fell in waves of deep indigo around her shoulders. Please, she whispered, her voice carrying a melodic quality that no translation device could perfectly capture. Please don't send me back. Tomas holstered his stunner. You're Solarian, aren't you?
Added.
Her star-filled eyes wide with fear. My name is Neri, she said, clutching a small metal cylinder to her chest. I had nowhere else to go. Tomas sighed, running a hand over his stubbled jaw. Solarians were rare in this part of the galaxy, their home world having fallen under the protection of the Draconid Empire decades ago. Most humans had never seen one in person. How did you get on my ship? He asked, keeping his voice gentle. At the Europa docking bay. I ... double quotes. Her voice faltered. I manipulated the loading supervisor's perception. It's an ability my people have. I'm sorry, Tomas nodded slowly. He'd heard rumors about Solarian abilities: empathic manipulation, light bending, even limited telekinesis. The Draconids had certainly found them useful. Why are you running? Neri's shoulders trembled. They were going to take me to the breeding facilities. My genetic sequence was deemed optimal for their experiments. But her voice broke on the last word. My family helped me escape, but they didn't make it. Tomas felt something cold settle in his stomach. The Draconid Empire's atrocities were well documented but largely ignored by the Galactic Council, which preferred maintaining trade relations to enforcing humanitarian standards. Listen, he said, checking his chronometer. We dock at Helios in 20 minutes. The station runs full biometric scans on all arrivals. If you're flagged as a runaway, they'll return me to my handlers, she finished, her voice hollow.
I
understand. I'll leave your ship now. Find another way. As she turned to go, Tomas surprised himself by touching her shoulder. Wait, I didn't say I was turning you in. Neri looked up at him, those star-filled eyes blinking in confusion. I have a friend on Helios Juniper, ex-military engineer. She knows how to work around station security. If anyone can get you through undetected, it's her. Why would you help me? Neri asked, genuine bewilderment in her voice. Tomas thought about his own daughter, lost during the Mars Colony Rebellion years ago. Thought about the countless times he'd looked the other way. Told himself that other people's problems weren't his concern. Because it's the right thing to do, he said. Simply, and maybe it's time someone stood up to the Draconids, even in a small way. A proximity alert blared through the ship's communication system. Approaching Helios Station. Prepare for docking procedures, Dora announced.
Come on, Tomas said, guiding Neri toward his personal quarters. We need to hide you before the
Docking inspectors arrive. As they hurried through the corridor, Tomas knew he was crossing a line from which there would be no return. Harboring a Solarian fugitive would make him an enemy of the Draconid Empire, but looking at Neri's hopeful expression, he couldn't bring himself to regret it. Sometimes, he thought, the greatest journeys begin with the smallest acts of defiance. You've really done it this time, Reeves, Juniper Valdez muttered. Her cybernetic eye worried as it scanned Neri. The ex-military engineer's workshop was cluttered with half-finished projects and salvage tech. Hidden in the depths of Helios Station's maintenance sector. I couldn't just leave her, Tomas replied, watching as Juniper circled the Solarian, who stood perfectly still under the examination. Fascinating, Juniper said, her organic eye widening. I've only seen Solarians in restricted military briefings. The Draconids keep them isolated. Neri's luminescent skin dimmed slightly. My people were once respected astronomers and explorers. Now we're little more than tools for the Empire. Juniper's scarred face softened. Well, you're safe for the moment. My workshop is shielded from standard scans. For the moment isn't enough, Tomas said. Helios is crawling with Draconid informants. We need a long-term solution. Juniper ran. Her hand through her silver-streaked black hair, her expression thoughtful. I might have something. She moved to a cluttered workbench and retrieved a small device, prototype biosignature masker. Developed it for special ops before I retired. You were dishonorably discharged for punching an admiral, Tomas corrected. With a half-smile, he deserved it. Juniper shrugged. Anyway, this should hide Neri's unique biological markers. Make her register as human on standard scans. Neri looked at the device with wonder. This would allow me freedom of movement. Don't get too close to military-grade scanners, and you'll need to cover your skin. I can help with that, Tomas offered. My cargo run to Meridian Colony leaves tomorrow. It's a frontier world, minimal Draconid presence. Juniper's cybernetic eye focused on him sharply. You'd risk your shipping license for her? That's your livelihood, Tomas. Before he could answer, the workshop's security system flashed red. Ichnid Patrol, Juniper hissed, checking the monitors. Full tactical unit. They're conducting a sector-by-sector search. For me, Neri whispered, her star-filled eyes wide with fear. They're 3 sectors away, Juniper said. We have maybe 20 minutes. Tomas's mind raced. Can we get to my ship? Juniper shook her head. Docking bay is locked down. Standard procedure during high-level searches. Then we fight, Tomas declared, reaching for his stunner. With what? Your cargo hauler's license? Juniper scoffed. Against Draconid battle armor? Neri stepped forward, the silver markings on her face glowing slightly. There's another way. The maintenance tunnels. Juniper looked surprised. How do you know about those? I've been absorbing information since I arrived, Neri explained. It's how my people learn. The station schematics were in your computer. Photographic memory? Tomas asked. More like osmotic knowledge acquisition, Neri replied. The tunnels connect to the civilian shuttle bay. You could requisition an emergency vessel. Juniper nodded slowly. That might actually work. I can override the shuttle bay protocols. He worked quickly, gathering supplies and essential tools. Juniper programmed the biosignature masker, attaching it to Neri's wrist, where it hummed quietly. It's not perfect, she warned, but it should confuse basic scanners. As they prepared to leave, the workshop door slid open unexpectedly. A tall figure in Draconid military uniform stood in the doorway, hand resting on a plasma pistol. Well, said Commander Krell, his reptilian features twisting into what passed for a smile among his kind. This explains the anomalous energy readings we detected. Tomas stepped in front of Neri, instinctively. This is a private workshop. You have no jurisdiction here. Krell's yellow eyes narrowed. I have jurisdiction wherever Draconid interests are concerned. Human. His gaze shifted to Neri, and that Solarian belongs to us. She belongs to herself, Tomas replied, his hand inching toward his stunner. Krell noticed the movement and laughed, a harsh sound like grinding metal. Heroics will only get you killed, cargo hauler, behind them. Juniper had silently moved to her workbench. With a fluid motion, she activated something small and cylindrical. A blinding flash filled the room, followed by a high-pitched whine that made Tomas's teeth ache. When his vision cleared, Krell was on the floor, temporarily paralyzed by the sonic disruptor. "That won't hold him long," Juniper said, already moving toward the back exit. "The maintenance tunnel is through here."
Oof.
As they fled through the narrow service corridors of Helios Station, alarm sirens began to wail. The hunt had begun. The civilian shuttle juddered as it broke atmosphere, entering Meridian Colony's turbulent upper cloud layer. The pilot's seat, Tomas fought the controls while Juniper worked frantically at the navigation console. "They're still on our tail," she reported grimly. 2 Draconid interceptors, closing fast. In the rear compartment, Neri sat with her eyes closed, the silver markings on her face pulsing with concentrated energy. "I'm trying to mask our engine signature," she said, her voice strained. "But their systems are resisting." Their escape from Helios Station had been narrow alarms blaring, security protocols overridden, and a desperate launch sequence that had nearly crashed them into the docking bay doors. Now, 3 days later, the Draconide pursuit had not relented. "Can't outrun them," Tomas admitted as the shuttle shook violently, "and we can't outfight them." "Land in the Scar," Juniper suggested suddenly. "The mineral deposits will scramble their sensors." Tomas glanced at her. "The Scar is a death trap. Electromagnetic storms, acid rain, exactly why they won't follow." "Us in," Juniper countered. With no better options, Tomas altered course. Diving toward the massive canyon that split Meridian's northern continent, the shuttle's systems protested, warning lights flashing across the console as they descended into the volatile atmospheric conditions behind them. The Draconide interceptors hesitated, then broke off pursuit. Unwilling to risk their sophisticated vessels in the Scar's unpredictable environment, it worked. Juniper exclaimed, watching the radar as the enemy ships circled above the canyon. "For now," Tomas cautioned, fighting to maintain control as winds buffeted the shuttle. "We need to find shelter before the next storm hits," they managed. To set down on a relatively stable plateau halfway down the canyon wall. Outside, purplish lightning crackled between the clouds, illuminating the vast, jagged landscape of the Scar. "The shuttle's shielding will protect us from the worst of it," Tomas said, powering down non-essential systems to conserve energy. "But we're trapped here until the Draconids give up." "But they won't give up," Neri said quietly. "Not for someone. With my genetic profile?" Juniper looked at her curiously. "What exactly makes you so valuable to them?" Before Neri could answer, proximity alarms blared. Something was approaching from deeper in the canyon. "Impossible," Tomas muttered, checking. "The scanners. Nothing should be able to navigate these conditions." A sleek vessel emerged from the swirling clouds, smaller than the Draconide interceptors, but unmistakably of their design. It hovered near their position, then extended landing gear and set down 20 meters away. "We're cornered," Juniper said. Reaching for her sonic disruptor, the vessel's hatch opened and a single figure emerged. To their surprise, it was a Draconid. But unlike the militaristic Commander Krell, this one wore civilian clothes and moved with an almost tentative gait. "Don't shoot," the Draconid called out, hands raised in the universal gesture of peace. "I'm not with the military. My name is Vex. I'm a scientist, or I was before I deserted." Tomas kept his stunner aimed at the newcomer. "Why should we trust you?" "Because I know why they want her," Vex replied, golden eyes fixed on Neri, "and I want to help stop them." After a tense negotiation conducted via CUM systems, they allowed Vex into the shuttle. The Draconid scientist moved cautiously, aware of the weapons trained on him. "I worked in the genetic research division," Vex explained, his scaled hands clasped together nervously. "The experiments on Solarians, they went beyond unethical. They were monstrous." "What kind of experiments?" Tomas asked, not lowering his stunner. "Weaponization," Vex said simply. "The Solarians have natural abilities that our military covets. Empathic manipulation, energy conversion, knowledge absorption. They've been trying to enhance these traits, Make them controllable. Neri stepped forward, her luminescent skin bright with anger. My people are not weapons. No, Vex agreed sadly. But the Empire doesn't see it that way. Especially not with your lineage, Neri. She stiffened. You know who I am? Your genetic profile was the cornerstone of our research. You're descended from the high astronomers, the Solarian leadership before the invasion. Your natural abilities are exponentially stronger than most. Juniper let out a low whistle. No wonder they're so determined to find you. But how did you find us? Thomas demanded, still suspicious. Vex reached slowly into his pocket and withdrew a small device. I've been tracking the research division's pursuit vessels. When they changed course so suddenly, I knew they must have found something important. Or someone you deserted, Neri said, studying the Draconid. Why? Vex's reptilian features contorted with what might have been shame. I joined the program believing we were helping both species evolve. When I learned the truth that we were creating living weapons, I couldn't continue. But neither could I stop it alone. Tomas finally lowered his weapon. What exactly are you proposing? Have access codes, research data, evidence of what? They're doing, Vex replied. With Neri's help, we could expose everything to the Galactic Council. Even the Empire can't ignore their sanctions. Outside, the storm intensified, lightning casting sharp shadows through the viewports. In that flickering light, human, Solarian, and Draconid looked at each other, unlikely allies united against a common enemy. It won't be easy, Juniper warned. We're already fugitives. Sometimes, Tomas said, echoing his earlier thought, the greatest journeys begin with the smallest acts of defiance. Neri's star-filled eyes gleamed with determination. Sometimes they end with revolution. The Draconad research facility loomed before them, a massive structure carved into an asteroid at the edge of controlled space. From their vantage point and Vex's modified scout vessel, it resembled a metal spider clinging to the rock, its docking arms extending like legs into the void. Security is heaviest at the main entrance, Vex explained, displaying the facility schematic he had downloaded. But there's a maintenance airlock here, used for external repairs. It's minimally guarded. Tomas studied the plans, his expression grim. 2 weeks had passed since their encounter in the Scar. 2 weeks of careful planning, gathering resources, and narrowly avoiding Draconid patrols. Now everything hinged on this mission. What about internal security? Juniper asked, her cybernetic eye scanning the data. Standard protocols, biometric scanners, motion sensors, armed guards, Vex replied. But I still have valid credentials. I can get us past the initial checkpoints. Neri sat quietly, her luminescent skin dimmed to a faint glow, a sign of concentration. Among her people, the biosignature masker Juniper had modified hummed at her wrist, but it wouldn't fool the facility's advanced scanners. I'll need to hide my presence differently, she said finally. Through empathic suggestion, Tomas looked concerned. You said extended use of that ability is dangerous. Everything about this mission is dangerous, Neri countered softly. But the evidence Vex described accords of what they're doing to my people. It's worth the risk. They approached under the cover of a scheduled supply delivery, their signals masked among the larger vessels. Vex guided them expertly to the maintenance airlock, where his access codes still functioned. They haven't updated the security protocols, he noted with relief, as the airlock cycled open. Typical bureaucratic oversight. Once inside, they moved. Through service corridors, avoiding the main thoroughfares. Juniper had outfitted them with CUM devices and basic weapons stunners for Tomas and herself. Nothing for Vex, who refused to carry one, and a small energy focuser for Neri that complemented her natural abilities. The central data hub is 2 levels down, Vex whispered as they paused at an intersection. That's where the research files are stored. They encountered their first real obstacle at a security checkpoint to armed Draconid guards monitoring an internal scanner. Follow my lead, Vex said. Straightening his posture and adopting the haughty demeanor typical of Empire scientists, he approached the checkpoint confidently, presenting his credentials. Research team, authorized by Commander Krell for special project evaluation. The guards looked skeptical. "We weren't notified of any evaluation," obviously Vex replied with practiced disdain. "It's a security audit. If you were notified, it would defeat the purpose." While Vex distracted them, Neri focused her empathic abilities, projecting an aura of routine and unimportance. Sweat beaded on her forehead with the effort, but gradually, the guard's expression slackened. "Of course, Dr. One said mechanically. "Proceed." They passed through, but Neri stumbled once they were out of sight, her skin flickering like a failing light. "I can't do that many more times," she admitted, as Tomas steadied her. The data hub was a vast chamber filled with processing units and holographic displays. Vex moved to a central terminal and began accessing files while Juniper stood guard at the entrance. "Here," Vex said after several tense minutes. "Project Luminous, the Solarian experimentation program. Everything's here. Genetic manipulation, forced breeding, neural reprogramming." Tomas watched over his shoulder, his face hardening with each new atrocity revealed. "Can you download it?" "It's already doing it," Vex confirmed, inserting a data crystal. Into the terminal, suddenly alarms blared throughout the facility. On a nearby monitor, they saw Commander Krell leading a tactical team toward the data hub. "Someone recognized you," Juniper called from the doorway, drawing her stunner. "We need more time," Vex said urgently, watching the download progress. "The transfer is only at 60%. "Then we'll make time," Tomas decided, moving to Juniper's position.
Hold them off as long as you can.
Neri helped Vex finish the download. The first wave of Draconet security forces arrived minutes later, plasma weapons charged. Tomas and Juniper took cover behind structural pillars, returning fire with their stunners, woefully outmatched but determined. "This isn't going to work," Juniper shouted over the barrage. "Their armor is too strong for stunners." Tomas watched as a plasma bolt scorched the pillar inches from his head. "We just need a few more minutes." "Download at 90%, Vex called from the terminal. Commander Krell's voice boomed through the corridor. "Surrender the Solarian, and the humans may live. Continue this foolishness, and you all die." In the momentary lull, Tomas made a decision. He holstered his stunner and stepped into the open, hands raised. "I want to talk to Commander Krell," he called out. The Draconade forces hesitated and parted as Krell stepped forward, plasma rifle aimed at Tomas's chest. "Brave but stupid cargo hauler," Krell sneered. "What could you possibly say that would interest me?" "I've seen your research files," Tomas replied calmly. "What you're doing isn't just cruel, it's short-sighted. The Solarians could be allies, not slaves." Krell laughed harshly. "It's philosophy from a human smuggler. Your species barely qualified for Galactic Council membership." "Maybe," Tomas acknowledged. "But we understand something you don't. Cooperation achieves more than domination." As he spoke, keeping Krell's attention, Vex completed the download and signaled to Neri. She stepped forward, the energy focuser in her hand. "And we understand sacrifice," Tomas continued. Before Krell could react, Neri activated the device, channeling her own energy through it in a blinding flash that overloaded the facility's power grid. Emergency lights flickered on as Krell and his forces momentarily reeled from the surge. "Now," Tomas shouted, diving back into cover as Juniper launched a smoke grenade in the confusion. They retreated to a secondary corridor Vex had identified. In the schematics, behind them, Krell's enraged orders echoed through the darkness. "You can't escape the Empire," he roared. "We don't need to escape," Tomas muttered as they ran. "We just need to expose it." The transmission reached every corner of inhabited space simultaneously, overriding standard communication protocols through a method Neri had developed using Solarian knowledge and Juniper's engineering expertise. On countless worlds, beings of all species watched in stunned silence as the evidence unfolded before them. Solarians subjected to cruel experiments, genetic manipulation, forced breeding programs, all sanctioned by the highest levels of the Draconide Empire. Vex's calm, scientific narration provided context, while Neri's testimony gave it emotional weight. But it was Tomas, a simple human cargo pilot, whose words resonated most powerfully. "We stand at a crossroads. For too long, the galaxy has allowed power to dictate morality. Today, we choose differently. Today, we say no to tyranny, no to subjugation, and yes to freedom, not just for Solarians, but for all beings who deserve to chart their own course among the stars. The reaction was immediate and unprecedented. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Trade sanctions against the Draconid Empire were implemented within hours. Several member species recalled their ambassadors on dozens of worlds. Under Draconid control, protests erupted, emboldened by the knowledge that the galaxy was watching. 6 months later, Tomas stood on the observation deck of the newly christened Freedom Station, watching as the first official delegation of liberated Solarians arrived. Beside him, Neri's luminescent skin glowed with happiness. "They're really free," she said softly, her star-filled eyes wide with wonder. "My people are free." "You're not completely," Juniper cautioned, joining them at the viewport. Her cybernetic I had been upgraded with the latest technology, courtesy of the Galactic Council's gratitude. The Empire still controls parts of your homeworld. These things take time. But the breeding facilities have been shut down, Vex added, his reptilian features solemn. The former scientist had faced significant challenges many considered him a traitor to his species, but his testimony had been crucial in forcing the Empire to accept terms. And the research data has been destroyed. Tomas watched as the Solarian ship docked, its elegant design reflecting the artistic culture that had been suppressed for generations. "What will you do now?" he asked Neri. She turned to him, silver markings shimmering on her purple skin. "Help rebuild. There's so much knowledge to recover, so many of our traditions to restore." She hesitated, "But I'll come back. You humans have become ... important to me." "Careful," Juniper teased. "That sounds dangerously like sentiment." A commotion at the docking bay drew their attention. The Solarian delegation was emerging, led by an elder whose silver markings were more elaborate than any they'd seen on Neri. At the sight of her, the elder stopped, then hurried forward. "Nira Valen, the elder," said in the melodic language of their people, "daughter of the high astronomers." Neri bowed deeply. "Elder Toril, I did not expect to be remembered." "You were believed lost in the purge," Elder Toril replied, switching. "Two galactic standard for the benefit of the others? Your survival and your actions have given our people hope again." Tomas stepped back, allowing them their moment. As a cargo hauler, he had spent his life moving things from place to place, never leaving any real mark on the galaxy. Yet somehow, a simple act of kindness toward a frightened alien hiding in his storage unit had cascaded into something that changed the course of history. Commander Krell had been right about one thing. Humans were newcomers to the galactic stage. Their technology less advanced, their political influence limited. But what the Draconids had failed to understand was the human capacity for compassion, the strength that came from standing for what was right, regardless of the cost. Later, as representatives from across the galaxy gathered to formalize new treaties and agreements, Tomas found himself unexpectedly called to address the assembly. "I'm just a cargo pilot," he protested to Juniper. "What am I supposed to say to ambassadors and presidents?" "The truth," she replied simply. "That's all you've ever needed." Standing before the diverse gathering of species, Tomas thought about the journey that had brought him here from finding Neri in his cargo hold to becoming a symbol of interspecies cooperation. He thought about humanity's place in this vast, complex galactic community. 6 months ago, I made a choice, he began. Not because I was brave or special, but because it was the right thing to do. That's something my species has always understood that. True strength isn't measured by technological advancement or military might, but by the courage to stand up for others when it matters most. He looked out at the assembled delegates, his gaze finding Neri among the Solarian representatives. The stars don't belong to any one species. They belong to all of us, and the future we build among them will be defined not by who has the most power, but by who uses that power with the most wisdom and compassion. As he finished speaking, the chamber filled with the diverse sounds of approval from dozens of species. And for the first time in recorded history, representatives of the Draconid Empire joined in that acclaim, small but significant sign that even the most entrenched beliefs could change. Outside the viewports of Freedom Station, the galaxy continued. Its eternal dance, stars burning against the darkness of space. Among them, a cargo ship prepared for its next delivery run, its human pilot ready to carry not just supplies, but something far more valuable, the enduring message that small acts of courage could ignite the light of freedom across the stars.